What's up, my little pretties? It's your mistress, the Queen of Lions here, and welcome back to another episode of Shadows and Pretties. This is episode 102. So today I am gonna do a Shadows and Pretties episode on a movie called Up. Now this is a Disney Pixar movie. I haven't done a Disney Pixar movie in quite a little while, so yeah, I decided to pick Up because I have not done I have not talked about this movie yet. I took a look at my Shadows and Pretties podcast playlist, and I realized I have not, did a review on it per se. So I am gonna sit here and basically, do a review on this movie. Now it's a Disney Pixar movie, animated pictures who that have, is a pretty good movie. I remember watching this in school when I was younger. It's a pretty good movie. So basically, I'm going to sit here and say that I'm going to be, wrapping, based before I get started with the review. I'm going to sit here and say that I am going to be spoiling pretty much everything about the movie. So if you have not seen it, I advise you to go watch this movie. So, yeah, I guess with that being the case, and with that being said, let's get started. Now, basically, in Up, basically it features young Carl Fredricksen, who idolizes a famous explorer named Charles F. Munns, who, when is accused of fabricating the skeletons of a giant bird he had brought back from Paradise Falls in South America. So he leaves and vows not to return until he has captured one alive. So Carl meets a girl named Ellie, who is a Munns fan, who confides her back the desire to move into her clubhouse, which is the abandoned house in the neighborhood. Now, surprisingly enough, when I saw that, I thought that, they were going to get in trouble for trespassing on somebody's property. Because if if a certain house is abandoned, there's usually signs that say no trespassing. There's usually that, but I'm surprised they didn't get caught. So, yeah, to a cliff looking over Paradise Falls, the two get married and they live in that same house, except they, make it more, they restored it, and Carl works as a balloon salesman at the zoo, and while Ellie works at the zoo. Unfortunately, they try to have a child, but unfortunately, Ellie suffers a miscarriage and is unable to have children, which is very unfortunate. So they decide to save up to go to Paradise Falls, but constantly forced to spend their savings on more urgent needs. Now, of course, as years go by, Carl finally arranges for the trip, but Ellie falls ill due to old age, and she unfortunately dies. Now, I'm gonna say that, the beginning part of Up was pretty sad. When I watched it, I found it to be quite depressing. That's kind of why every time I watch the beginning of Up, I always get depressed when Ellie, falls ill, which is very unfortunate. Now, years later, Carl is now retired and stubbornly holds out in the house while the neighborhood around him is replaced by skyscrapers. When Carl accidentally strikes a construction worker during a mishap, the court deems him a public menace and forces him to move into a resting house. However, though, it's kind of like a retirement home. When Carl resolves to keep the promise to Ellie to go to Paradise Falls, turning the house into a makeshift airship by using thousands of helium balloons to fly away. So he meets Russell, who is a young wilderness explorer kid, who visits Carl in the effort to earn his final merit badge in assisting the elderly, and becomes an accidental stowaway before Carl can land and send Russell home. They encounter a storm which drives them all the way to South America. Now, I really do think that, the Carl character was pretty interesting. The actor for him did a good job, and I like the character Russell, which the character Russell is kind of like a really cool sidekick, to be honest. He was pretty cool. So the house falls on Tabu opposite of Paradise Falls, and Carl and Russell harness themselves still beyond to begin to walk across the mesa, hoping to reach the falls before the balloons deflate. So, Russell encounters a giant, colorful, flightless bird who names it Kevin, who they meet a golden retriever named Doug, who wears a special collar that allows him to speak and vows to take the bird to his master. So the next day, they encounter a pack of aggressive, dogs led by Alpha, a Doberman Pincer, and they are taken to the master, who turns out to be elderly Charles Munns. Munns invites Carl and Russell aboard his, blimp or something, or airship, where he explains that he is still searching for the giant bird. When Russell notices the skeleton's resemblance to Kevin, Munns then becomes hostile and believing their attempt to capture the bird themselves. So Carl, Russell, and Doug flee, and but they are pursued by dogs. Kevin saves them, injuring her leg in the process, so Carl agrees to help her get home. But just as Kevin was ready to reunite with her chicks, Munns captures her and starts to fire brief Carl's house, forcing him to between saving it or Kevin. Carl saves the house and eventually reaches the falls, but Russell is upset at Carl for abandoning Kevin. So Carl then looks through Ellie's childhood scrapbook and is surprised that she has filled the blank pages with photos of the marriage, along with the written note from the hospital bed thanking him for the adventure, encouraging him to have a new one. So Carl goes outside only to see Russell flying away, using some balloons and a leaf blower just to rescue Kevin. Carl throws out his furniture and keepsakes, lightening the house enough to follow. So Munns captures Russell, but Carl and Doug aboard the, ship and free both Russell and Kevin as Munns pursues them to Carl's house. However, they do escape by jumping back into the airship while Munns gets caught on some balloon lines and falls to his death. So the house, having to lose so many balloons, descends it out of sight and out of the clouds. So Carl and Russell reunite with Kevin and her chicks, and during the fly back home, taking all of Munns' dogs with them, Russell receives his Assisting the Elderly badge, and Carl presents, Russell a grape soda bottle cap and that Ellie gave to Carl when they first met, which now dubs as the Ellie badge. So meanwhile, unnoticed to Carl that this house has landed on the cliff beside Paradise Falls, fulfilling the promise to Ellie. So that's basically the end of the story. I really would have to say it is depressing, in the beginning, but it's still a pretty good movie regarding this. So, of course, this movie was released in 2009 in May 29th. So it became one of the first animated 3D films to do so in the 2009's Cannes Film Festival. So, yeah. So basically, the acting was pretty well made in detail. I do like, that all the characters had pretty good, concept for each and every character. I really do find that this character, Russell, is actually a pretty good sidekick. Really do find it to be a really fun, fun movie to watch. I still really would have to say, when the development for Up began, the director named Pete Docter, who apparently began running the story Up in 2004, but the only difference is that under the title was named of Heliums, which he developed as a fantasy of a flying house as an idea of escaping from life when it comes to Irritane, which it appears to be from difficulty with his social situations growing up. So Tom McCarthy, who basically added Doctor and Bob Pearson to start in shaping this, Peterson started shaping about a story 3 months then. So, yeah, surprisingly, the film Up was in production in 2004, but unfortunately it was not, released to the public till later. So basically, they had still been developed, but then it was, thrown out for a bit. But then eventually they start working on it more, and that's how, the concept becomes more parallel to certain characters. And they even took a look at certain, concepts just to make the movie. Now, the animation of its own self was pretty well made in detail. And I really would have to say that even 11 of the Pixar artists spent at least 3 days searching the Monte to Aroma by airplane, jeep, and helicopter, as they also spend these nights painting and sketching, certain parts for the Up movie. Now, of course, when Up was still in development, Pixar designs the characters to be more interesting, such as Carl was even more to do so, with being at least 3 heads high. He was not given the elderly features such as liver spots or hair in his ears to keep him appealing, but yet again they just give him wrinkles and that. So, hearing aid and a cane to make him appear elderly. So, the music of this story was amazing and really well made. I really do like how the story ended up, going out as that. Really would have to say that Up actually did a lot of good concepts when it came to this. So, however, it was a box office success and it became a really popular, movie at the time. So, of course, we usually get Up, and we have it on Blu-ray discs and DVD. And of course, we also have Doug's Special Mission, which is kind of a short, just like a short that we have seen. But of course, with that said, they really had a mixture of, some negative reviews on this movie, but mostly the positives. So there is a video game based on the same name released in certain, platforms. And yeah, that they have been made in certain concepts when it came to this movie. Now, I really would have to say when this movie came out of the same name, Up, but for different platforms. So, however, the one thing I'm really not sure is if they're going to make a sequel to this movie, or if they're going to, make something interesting with the concept. Now, I do like how the movie had, went out. It had a pretty good, concept. I really do like the characters, of how they acted like such as, for example, Carl acts like, he's young in the beginning of the movie, but acts, like normally elderly would, although it's kind of something. But to be completely honest, when it came to actually the movie being in development, it was quite interesting to see, how great that the concepts of its own self worked out. So, I really do think that this movie actually was pretty sad in certain parts, especially the beginning of it, where it shows that, Ellie and Carl are, together. So, yeah, I really would have to say this movie is actually pretty good. It's a very fun movie, and I recommend for those who have not seen it to go watch the movie. It's a pretty good movie. And let me tell you right now, once you see it, you will not be disappointed because it's a really, really good movie, to be honest. I really would have to say that even though the beginning was depressing, but other than that, the movie was still pretty good. I remember seeing this on DVD when I watched it in school. I think I was in grade 6 or 7. It's a sad movie, but I really do like how, the movie went out. It's a pretty good movie that really plays a pretty good part when it comes to, when it was in development and that. Really would have to say that despite the other Disney Pixar movies I've seen, such like Toy Story, Monsters Inc., and etc., this movie does a pretty good concept for the whole story of what it is. I really do still find this movie to be good, but yet again, I haven't seen the movie in a couple years actually, but it's still a pretty good movie, and I really would have to say it's a good movie to watch with your kids. If you have any kids, you would really like it. And to sit there and conclude this, it's a great movie, and I really recommend you all take a look at the movie. If you haven't, you will not be disappointed once you've seen it. But to be completely honest, it's a pretty good movie. So, yeah, to wrap this up, I'm going to sit here and say, what are your thoughts on this movie? If you like it, feel free to let me know in the comments below if you like it. If you don't like it, we're all entitled to our own opinions. But, yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. I'm the Queen of Lions. If you're new to my channel, like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Do not forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so then you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, I'll catch you all in the next video, so peace out. As always, I'll see you all in the next upload.